All right. Welcome to Inside the Grind podcast, the podcast for people building real coffee shops. Every episode, we sit down with someone who's deep in the day to day, hiring, fixing, worrying, making hard choices, and still showing up to serve. These are honest stories from founders in the thick of it. No fluff, no ego, just the real grind and what's getting them through. If you're building something on your blog, this one's for you. Brought to you by Coffee Futures Fund.
It's a people's business, right? There is no other industry which is as people's business as coffee, because it's all about people. It's all about emotions. It's all about, you're doing it because you care for it. You not just care for the experience, the people, the community, all of it. And how do you bring all of, and not just your immediate community. When you think about, like you said, you think about all the steps, the global economic scenario, your producers, and where it's coming from. So you start thinking about all through the end of it, or possibly the start of the supply chain.
One of the joys of coffee, for me at least, it is a truly global business, right? You cannot serve a cup of coffee anywhere without being reliant on flows of product, of money, of industry, of knowledge all the way around the world. So, right, even if you simplify it, so you could be, I have some good friends setting up amazing specialty coffee businesses in like Colombia and Brazil. So it's not even like that north to south or producing a consuming country thing. But even a cafe in Brazil, it could be buying coffee from Brazil, is using equipment from Italy or Germany or China or wherever, right? And they're using knowledge and standards and even the most like intangible thing, like ideas of quality imported or exported from all around the world, right? In my case, the coffee industry I grew up in was heavily influenced by Antipodean influences around espresso, around American influences around, let's say, barista third wave culture, and also European influences around things like brewed coffee quality and Arabica, and all those things came together in the UK specialty coffee landscape that I grew up in, and now that references built in the UK or definitions of drinks are also being used in the US, but also in Southeast Asia, where, coffee is exploding in a different new way. And one of the things I'm most excited about is the variety and diversity of coffee businesses and products and intentions that are developing, particularly in Asia, mostly because this, I'm grouping a lot of countries and a lot of cultures there. A lot of the countries in Asia do not have a historic specialty coffee drinking culture, right? Whereas Europe has one for like 300 years, a little bit based on the US. US has its own one, whatever. So there's a bit of a blank canvas that people are trying new things, some of which are really succeeding, some of which are not, and that's okay. That's the way it goes. I'm beginning to see some parts of that cross borders into Europe, into the UK, certainly in the US. And I'm really excited about that because, again, that feeds into what the coffee future is or the cafe future is. What will it look like in the future? What will the drinks look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. I'm taking a step back here and going back to your story, right? And I'm curious to know, where did it all begin for you? Because you are that person who's deeply rooted, who it's not just the knowledge of it as an intellectual person, understanding things and observing things, and then, sort of connecting the dots, not just locally, but globally, industry-wide, but emotionally also you connect with each of these different players in the industry. What are these people doing? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? And then you're bringing all this together. But where did it begin for you? Do you remember any particular moment or time in your life that you said?
I think I've been very lucky. Like I've been very lucky on my journey in coffee and in life, and it hasn't always felt that lucky. Sometimes it's only when you look backwards you can see the best fits for what they were, or those huge like opportunities that you were offered. My first career, let's call it a career, is I grew up in a small town, and the industry that had been dominant in that town, that had built all the houses, built the schools even. So the school I went to was built by the local shoe factory. That's a big international brand now, but started in a very small place. Those jobs had kind of disappeared, but they've been replaced by retail. So they built an outlet shopping center, a big mall that coaches of old ladies went to every day to drink tea and buy some things. I don't. So I went from what would be US high school or college in the UK. I went straight into working in a clothes store, selling clothes. It was not a great job, but it was a great brand. And it was a brand that I fell in love with, that connected to British music culture, to mods and rockers and Britpop and like, again, stories, right? So you can tell these beautiful stories about it. And I loved it. And because I loved it, I wanted to talk about it and I wanted to share that with the customers. So I went from having a weekend job there whilst I was studying to, working full time while I worked out what I was going to do. And because I was passionate, because I cared about it, they gave me some good opportunities. So I became, and there was a young company running these little retail stores as a joint venture with the brand, with the clothing company. So I became their training manager. I was massively unqualified for this job, but I was passionate and they could pay me a low wage and I would jump on the train. So I was traveling around the country. We had 10, 12 stores, and then we took on another brand, which was also pretty cool. So I was doing these little business things and learning a little bit and really being able to think about that business I was in, which was selling stuff, buying stuff and selling stuff to people. So really thinking about customer service, about, what metrics make a shop work? How do you developing strategies for those metrics that are one of the most fun things that I used to teach people. And, I'd read this in some not stupid book, this old book from the 60s about designing supermarkets. I don't know where I found this book or who gave me this book, but it was fantastic. And it was things like, you can stick your shopping baskets right at the door as people go into the store. And most people will walk past the baskets and they'll go and get their first thing. And then about halfway around the shop, they've got 4 things in their hands. They can't pick up anything else. So they either drop stuff, they get angry because they've got to go back and get a basket. So their shopping experience is good. Or they leave and they only buy those 4 things, right? Or you put your baskets at the end of aisles. So people, when they realize that they don't have the basket, they pick it up at the right time and they continue the shopping. It's full of little things like this. It's everything in a clothing shop is, we want someone to come in and find something. You want them to buy something. And when they're buying something, you also want them to buy another thing as well, right? You want to increase the basket size and whatever. So there's little things like one of the brands I was working with was selling jeans. And so it had this thing that anyone who was trying on jeans, you would hand them a belt as they went to go and try on the clothes, right? You didn't ask them if they wanted a belt. You didn't talk about it or do anything, because all of those, if you ask someone, do you want a belt? They're going to say no, right? But if you just put it in their hat, if you put something towards someone, they take it, right? It's just natural human responses. And I love this because it was I can go into a shop and we can make a difference that, suddenly one in, let's say 10% of people try something on and you hand a belt to 50% of them and 1 in 10 of them buy it, but you've already changed the metric. You've hit the goal. And I just felt so cool that I could go into these places and make a difference. So I loved some of the detail of that job. I loved some of the things that I was learning and I loved the brand. So I thought I was the bee's knees. I thought I was amazing. This great sales guy. And then the company went bust. There was a disagreement between the supplier and someone hadn't been paying bills, but overnight the company disappeared. So I was unemployed for a while, and I think that probably left a big scar on me, about scarcity, about, and I had kids at the time and I, taking on a house, mortgage, whatever. So it was stressful. And I tried to get other jobs in the same industry, but I was used to being paid way more than I should have, or not way more than I should have been, but I was used to doing a job that I wasn't quite qualified for on paper. So I really struggled to get a job at the same level. I finally got a job a little level below, being a store manager for a cool brand for a retail company, but it was a brand that didn't resonate. So surfwear. I love the idea of surf. I'm pretty convinced if I put a few years in, I could probably do it, but I never have, right? I never have. So selling surfwear meant nothing to me. And I knew it was high quality product, but I realized that if I don't believe in it, I don't want to share those stories. I'm not, excited or motivated by it. So I find that job really difficult, really emotionally draining. And for other reasons, I was in a position that I could make a choice, which is hugely privileged, but that I could continue with that, or I could start again, try something else. And all of those, that curiosity and that, like, I guess that gap that had been left in my life that previously I had filled with work, I had started filling in my own time with this like home barista thing where I was reading books and blogs about coffee just because I was trying to make better coffee at home. And I don't know whether someone gave me a coffee machine and that's why it started, or whether I bought a coffee machine because I'd already started getting into this idea. And I went, I started as a Starbucks customer, or a Starbucks phone kind of chain thing. So when I was 16, 17, I was drinking hazelnut mochas and they were great. And, I have no shame. Sometimes that's what you want. Actually, like, I very rarely want a mocha, hazelnut hot chocolate done. I think. So I started from that place, but I found this equipment and this community, and really it was the idea of physically with my hands, I can make this product better with a little time and a little effort and a little knowledge, learning, whatever. And coffee has been really rewarding in a way. The more you learn, the more tiny improvements you can make to the thing you do. And I was getting this joy and this passion from that. And I was really struggling with doing a job that I didn't get that joy and passion from. So it's like, whatever I do, I'm going to do something that I love, and I love coffee. So let's see if I can find a way through that. And there were other drivers to it as well, but I decided that's what I was going to do. I left that role and I started working. The idea was to open a cafe, which I still haven't done. But I was like, before I go all in, before I spend this small amount of money I have saved up on this thing that I know nothing about, just get a job in a chain and like do it for real. So I got a job as a part-time barista with a chain. There really weren't many specialty stores. I think it was one in the closest city to me, but there were chains that were growing. So it's a way to learn to make coffee. I progressed fast in that industry because I knew how to make a shop work, right? And I think, one of the things that we'll come back to with our mentees over time, and I think many people who work in coffee will agree with me on this, even if they don't want to at first, is that the coffee business is, certainly the cafe business, is not that different to retail. And there's a bit of a combination between the hospitality and the shop, right? And there are some differences because of trading hours, because of people's habits, and that's very like geographic and cultural. But the real problems and the real fundamentals of does a shop work are the same, right? Is the staffing costs or occupation costs, occupancy costs. Are you getting people in the door? Are you doing something that attracts them? Are they spending enough money when they come in? Are your margins good? And your things, like, all of those things are the same. Not that I want people to remove their passion for the product, but you need both. You need to have the passion and the idea and the vision for what you want your business to do and the love of product and people and whatever. And then you also need to be able to remove all of that and then look at the numbers on the other side and go, if this wasn't coffee, if this was paper clips, if this was something really non-artisanal or commodity-like, would these numbers still stack up? Do we have enough people coming in? Are they spending enough money? Are they doing whatever? So I think there are a lot of similar, or let's phrase this another way. I think coffee people, because we love each other, like we love our community, we love what we do. Sometimes we see everything we do as so unique and so special. There's no other industry that is like this, right? But actually all the problems in shops are the same as all the other shop retail businesses have. Most of the problems in origin and agriculture of coffee are also very common in agriculture of other products, right? So you talk to a dairy farmer, you talk to a wheat farmer, you talk to a coffee farmer. My gut feeling is the top 10 problems and the top 10 reasons they do what they do would be identical, right? Problems would be tied to climate change, commodity pricing, not being in control of certain things. The reason they do it is probably because of family or local tradition or the best opportunities that were open to them, right? So there are agriculture problems, there are retail problems. For a roastery, there's how do you manage a factory, right? Or business to business sales or whatever. And so I also think there's a lot we can learn from those other industries. I fast tracked my coffee career in this chain. I ended up managing 10 stores for them. I got a little upset working in the business because I was good. I was succeeding. I turned down opportunities where I would have earned more money, would have succeeded in a classical sense better, or would have been a better, dad to my kids, could have given them better opportunities had I taken a different path, but I chose to do something that I love. But I didn't love managing shops for a chain business or the coffee they served. And after maybe the first 2 months, we stopped learning about coffee in that business. We were learning about how to effectively run a retail unit along, one or two or three set models of managing labor, managing whatever. So I wanted to go back to learning about coffee. There was an opportunity to work for a machine and coffee supplier on a really big scale. So I took a job with them. I started as a regional trainer, and I was basically visiting 10 McDonald's a day, cleaning the milk systems on their automated machines. That was my job. But it was also interesting because I was seeing coffee from a different context, because I was very coffee passionate and because that business had a really wide range of different clients. I progressed pretty fast in it, and I ended up being their, let's say, coffee ambassador or training lead or whatever, dealing with a lot of their high volume and high value food service clients. They were running either small coffee chains that were very quality focused, or high-end coffee bars within office developments, supplying coffee to Google or to HSBC or whatever for all of their needs, setting up bars, setting up brands. So I've seen coffee from a really wide lens, the depth and variety of different coffee businesses, how they work and where coffee worked within them. And then another opportunity came up for me, which also, again, following that same kind of narrative, I was learning so much about business, but I was further and further removed from the quality of coffee that I wanted to work with. And an opportunity arose with a founder who ran one of the best small roasteries in the country. Well, the coffee that I was buying for my training courses to show people what coffee was, he was looking for someone who would do wholesale and business to business sales, because it was something that his personal passion wasn't built on. And I love cafes, and I love small business owners, and I love quality ingredients. So it was a way of ticking all those boxes. So again, I took a massive pay cut, took a job with this guy, rather than, following a corporate path, which maybe would have been smart. And then went on another incredible journey where we built a business that we really loved, we really cared about, was successful. Some of it was our work, some of it was good timing. Eventually, we sold that business to a similar sized competitor that was looking for market entry and access. And then I spent another 4 or 5 years working with that new combined company. So working with a board and a wider thing. So I got to see the coffee business at a range of different levels. I've worked, over the 10 years, 12 years that I was doing business to business and wholesale sales. I have watched, actually mom and pop businesses that were never going to make money, but they love what they were doing. I've watched their journey either start and end, or start and continue and change and develop. I've watched people with real spark and real ingenuity build a business out of nothing that has become incredibly large and successful. I've seen a lot of failures as well, which are always hard. Seen transitions. So seeing people, the hardest thing if you're a roaster is losing a customer. The only thing that can make it better is if you lose them because they go on to either roast themselves or make a lot of money selling their cafe to another business, stuff like that. That's really hard when you're the roaster, because you lose hard work that you put into there. But actually that can be the success route for a lot of small business owners. And that's kind of powerful to watch and to understand that whole narrative journey through my other work. So through competition, I became this World Barista champion, which says nothing about my business knowledge or skills or whatever, but it's pretty cool. And was an incredible adventure, because you get really good at being a barista in this very artificial stage setting that is as difficult as making great coffee in a shop, but it's not the same. Okay. It's like, I don't know what a good example would be. It's like you might be great at horse racing, but maybe that's not the person that you want, saving you on a like mountain rescue or whatever. I think the opportunities that winning something like the World Championship, to travel, to work with other businesses, they have nothing to do with your ability to make coffee, right? Often they just have more to do with your ability to sit still and smile. But like, I've worked with incredible little businesses that buy amazing coffee and just really want to be connected to it. I've done, cool voluntary work working with barista communities in like Peru and Rwanda. It's been great experiences. But at the same time, I've worked with chains with 3,000 stores and understanding how you deliver their product, their ideas of quality in 3,000 locations simultaneously with a sudden launch date. And that is also an incredible journey. And being the coffee business from a global perspective makes it really interesting when you look at any individual market, because you can see all the things that have worked or haven't worked in other markets, and you can try and play them out in the one that you're looking at. That's why, for all the challenges that we have facing all parts of the coffee industry right now, I am optimistic because there are so many interesting things to do that have not been fully explored in coffee and in service and in cafes.
That's it for this episode of Inside the Grind. If something here helped, make sure to subscribe and pass it to another coffee shop or a friend. We all need each other more than we admit. To learn more or join the community, head to coffeefutures.fun. This movement is just getting started. Until next time, keep brewing. Your shop matters more than you know.